Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Deb Pingle, and I am the Agent Coordinator at the Krause Agency. Today's webinar is Veterans Benefits Planning for the Married Couple. Attendees will be in listen-only mode, but if you have questions, you can type those into the question portion of the GoToWebinar toolbar. I will encourage you to send those questions over throughout the webinar so we can be sure to get them to you at the end. We will be posting a recording of the webinar along with our slides to our website within 24 hours, so you have it for future reference. There will also be a brief survey at the end of the webinar. If you could take a moment to answer a few questions, it was very helpful. And now I would like to introduce you to the attorney Dale Krause, CEO and President of the Krause Agency. We specialize in assisting agents, financial planners nationwide, helping qualify their clients for Medicaid and VA benefits through the use of Medicaid-compliant annuities and other specialty-designed insurance products. I'll turn it over to you, Dale.
Thank you, Deb. Well, it's great to be here today. In putting this topic together, in the past we've done a lot of VA planning webinars and things of that nature involving the single veterans. So with so many requests for doing a case study with a married couple, I thought that was an appropriate topic. And so that's our focus today, is dealing with veteran benefits for the married couple. How do we accelerate their eligibility so they can get some financial relief from the Veterans Administration? Again, I think the whole purpose of the Krause Agency is really to help insurance agents and financial advisors work with their clients to, get them government entitlements. And so we as a firm, we don't sell a full array of products. We primarily focus on products that help with government entitlements, both Medicaid and veterans benefits. So if you have a client who's at home or in assisted living or in a nursing home and they're concerned about the high cost, they certainly should work with you, and you should work with us to develop a plan or strategy so that they can avoid the high cost of paying for that care. The goal of today's presentation really is to educate you on what I refer to as the Aid and Attendance Program, which is part of the VA administration, and it really helps veterans and surviving spouses of veterans to pay for long-term care expenses. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to cover some of the annuities that are used in VA planning, and then I'm going to close out with a case study on how a married couple, and I'm going to have an example for you, where I'm going to show you how someone with excess net worth can reduce their net worth, and then as a result of it, will accelerate their eligibility for the aid and attendance benefit. So we typically do that through a properly structured VA-compliant immediate annuity. So we all know that long-term care is a big hot topic today. Everywhere we turn, with the baby boomers coming in, there's over 10,000 a day turning 65. Baby boomers have now reached the age of requiring long-term care. And so there's a great push for trying to solve the long-term problem. Most long-term care in America is provided at the family or in the home by way of family members. A lot of spouses are taking care of their spouse at home, and they're providing the care for as long as they can. And so most of the care that's out there is provided at the family level. And then when someone needs more care, typically they find that when a family member or someone who's unskilled in care really cannot assist any longer, or they need some added benefits from a professional, then typically what happens is we look to a home health care agency who can come into the home, do an assessment, figure out what's needed, and then from there develop a long-term care planning strategy to take care of the needs of the person at home. When we move from the home health care level, we typically then find that when someone needs care on a more regular basis, every day they need help with certain things related to their activities of daily living, or they need someone to prepare their meals, things of that nature. An assisted living facility really is the next stop in the long-term care road. With assisted living facilities, I know when I started practicing law in the 80s, there weren't a lot of assisted living facilities. Typically people stayed at home until there was a point where they needed to go into a nursing home. At that point, they would transition straight from the home into the nursing home. But with long-term care and the demographic shifting in favor of seniors, a lot of providers of long-term care services saw the need for assisted living facilities so they popped up and they're quite common. When we get to the last stage of long-term care, we're really talking about a nursing home, and a nursing home is the highest level of care. So if someone's in a nursing home, generally they're there because they need to have care on a regular basis, and they're going to need someone to come in and tend to their needs on a daily basis. So nursing home care is the most restrictive when we talk about care in the long-term care setting. When we look at the cost of long-term care, I know that I said earlier that family members typically provide most of the care at home. There's no compensation involved, but you can have a situation where you could put together a caregiver agreement and you could compensate family members. But I find that most families, provide it just out of the moral obligation to take care of a loved one. And so, again, most of the care provided at home involves no compensation. When we move to the home health care setting, typically we find that, it can vary, but it's based on who comes into the home, whether you have an RN or you have a CNA or other health care provider. Depending on the level of skill required really dictates the cost. But according to the 2016 Genworth Cost of Care Survey, you can expect to spend up to $46,000 a year on home health care if you need substantial services from the professionals who provide a high level of home health care assistance. When we go to the assisted living level, now the average cost of a monthly stay in a one-bedroom single occupancy unit across the country, again, based on the 2016 Genworth Cost of Care Survey, indicates that it's about $3,628 a month. So if you look at the numbers here on the second row, you'll see that home health care can be more expensive than assisted living care, and that's not uncommon. But I think when we talk to most seniors and we ask them, where do you want to receive your long-term care, most of us would prefer to stay home, and so we'll stay home as long as we can. And a lot of times that cost of care, because of the hours that have to be put in each week, can make it very expensive, especially if you have an RN or someone of that caliber coming into the home. When we go to the nursing home level, when we look at the average cost nationally, it's about $6,844 a month for a semi-private room. Semi-private is two people in a room. It's the standard room for not only most private pay patients, but it's also the room that you'd find in a Medicaid setting. And again, that number comes from the 2016 Genworth Cost of Care Survey. When we look at the governmental programs and which ones pay for the care, you'll see on the last row here, the Veterans Pension Benefit, and that's what we're talking about today, will help with home health care and assisted living. So that benefit is the one we think of most when we know that someone is at home or assisted living and they're a qualified veteran. We're going to look to the Veterans Program to help them. Medicaid typically doesn't do much in the home health care setting or assisted living, but there are some states where there's limited programs available. But when we talk about a qualified veteran and we're talking about those two levels of care, certainly we look to the VA pension benefit to provide financial assistance. When we get to the nursing home level, because the cost is so much greater, and because the Veterans Pension Benefit is a limited benefit, in other words, it's not going to pay the entire cost of a nursing home, we're going to typically go to the Medicaid program, because the Medicaid program can pay up to 100% of the cost, depending on how you qualify. So again, when we think of long-term care, we think of a veteran, and we're thinking home health care, assisted living, we're going to think of the Veterans Pension Benefit. And when we move to the nursing home, and now, even if we have a qualified veteran, we're going to move away from the VA pension benefit, and we're going to look to Medicaid. Now, you can't get two programs at the same time. The government has a philosophy that if you're on the VA pension benefit, you're not going to also get 100% coverage by Medicaid. Now, the purpose of today's program is to distinguish the veterans. Now, if you look at the left side of this slide, you'll see that they're service-connected. These are veterans who served their country, and because of a disease or injury that resulted during their time in service, they have a service-connected disability. Now, most of those veterans are rated based on the extent of their disability, and we're not talking about that group. We're talking about the non-service side. That's the right side of the slide. Those are veterans who served their country, put in their 4 years in the Navy, got out, there were no problems related to their health while serving, and now later in life they need long-term care, whether it be at home or in assisted living. If we have that type of veteran, we're going to be looking at the two programs that the VA has, and that's housebound or aid and attendance. So when we talk about a non-service connected qualified veteran, in other words, we're talking about someone who served their country for 90 days active duty. Now most veterans, you're going to find that when you look at their time of service, they're going to have served 2, 3, 4 years generally. So most are going to be able to meet that 90 days of active duty very, very easily. And then they have to serve 1 day during a prescribed wartime. Now the war times are listed on this slide as being World War I, World War II, the Korean conflict, the Vietnam War, and the Gulf War. What we're seeing now is we're seeing some surviving spouses of some World War II veterans, especially if there's an age disparity. But I think a lot of the veterans that are now coming into the VA program are from the Korean wartime or the Vietnam War, which again, there were quite a few people in service during those war times. The other service requirements, so we have to have active duty 90 days or more during 1 day during a wartime. The other service requirement is they have to have a proper discharge. Now, again, most people who have served their country, who went in and got out, are typically going to have an honorable discharge. I think that's the most common discharge we find with veterans. They could have something less than an honorable, whether it be a general or something other than honorable, but typically you're going to find that most veterans have an acceptable discharge. And we can look at and determine which discharge they received by looking at their discharge papers, which are referred to as DD-214. In other words, everyone who leaves the military with a set of formal papers which not only defines their time of service, but also describes the discharge they have. Now, the veteran that's not qualified would be a veteran who received a dishonorable discharge, but I personally have not seen one of those. So again, I think it's not as common, or you're not going to see one. Most of us are never going to see a veteran with a dishonorable discharge. When we talk about the surviving spouse of a non-service connected qualified veteran, we're talking about the spouse who is married to a veteran who met the requirements, 90 days active duty, 1 day during a wartime, who received the proper discharge, and now this surviving spouse survived them. And so that spouse has the right to go after the VA benefit as long as they didn't remarry. Typically what we find is, you know, they have to have been married at least 1 year prior to the death. So again, it's going to prevent a deathbed marriage where, you know, someone's trying to give away some benefits before they go. So you're going to have a veteran that's married at least 1 year before the veteran's death. And in some states there's common law marriage and same-sex marriage that may be valid. I haven't seen any of those cases. And then they state that you must be living together at the time of death. Again, that's a pretty simple level of or priority to meet. And then remarriage typically disqualifies. Again, I think any time there's a divorce, you know, that surviving spouse is then disassociated from receiving the VA benefit. When we look at the non-financial requirement, what we're really looking for is the person, the claimant. Now, so if you have a single veteran, or you have a veteran who's married, or you have a surviving spouse of a veteran who meets the service requirements, then we refer to that person as a claimant. And so the claimant, whether it be the single veteran, married veteran, or the surviving spouse, has to be disabled. Now, most of us are technically disabled once we reach the age of 65 because we're no longer working, but that's not enough. So if you're going to have someone in a home health care setting and there's no professional coming into that home, you're going to need a physician's affidavit. That's where the physician certifies that the person's at home, needs a certain level of care, and that they're disabled, and that disabling portion is going to continue for at least a year. In other words, you know, you've got to be permanently disabled. The fact that someone may have broken their leg isn't good enough. You know, typically we're going to find that the veteran's 65 or older. They've now got certain impairments regarding ADLs, activities of daily living, and they can no longer do the things for themselves. At that point, you know, we're going to have a permanent and total disability. When we look at the VA benefit for home health care, typically what I refer to it as the housebound benefit. That's a level of benefit that's available to a veteran or the surviving spouse of a qualified veteran when they're receiving, they're at home, they're confined to their home, they're not able to leave the home except in the event they need to get doctor's care or things outside of the home. So typically they're home confined, and the only time they really leave the home is to go to doctor's appointments, things of that nature. So they would meet what's referred to as the housebound level of pension. So that is a different pension check that they receive to pay for their services, and it's less than what you'd receive from the aid and attendance benefit. So what does the housebound pension pay? Well, if we have a single veteran who's confined to his home or her home, it's $1,314 a month. That's the maximum amount they can receive. If we have the married veteran, again, who's at home, confined to his or her home, he or she can get $1,647 a month as a housebound pension benefit. And then if we have a surviving spouse of a qualified veteran, he or she can get $881 a month as a housebound pension benefit. When we go to the next level of benefits under the VA program, we're really talking about someone who's going to receive what's known as the aid and attendance benefit. Now, the aid and attendance benefit is different than the housebound because with the aid and attendance benefit, you need help every day with ADLs. In other words, without that assistance from another person to perform ADLs, and your ADLs are eating, bathing, dressing, transferring, toileting, or you may have a cognitive impairment, the start of Alzheimer's, or you may need medication management. Because the person needs aid and attendance on a daily basis, then they would be pursuing the VA benefit known as aid and attendance. Because again, remember, the housebound benefit is where a person's confined to their home, and the only time they really leave their home is to go to a medical appointment or things of that nature. But with the housebound benefit, they don't require care on a daily basis. The aid and attendance level of care requires that someone work with them every day. So it could be at their home, or typically what we see, it's in an assisted living facility. So again, the housebound benefit is different than the assisted living, and it really dictates which level based on the level of care you get and whether or not it's on a daily basis. So when we look at the aid and attendance pension benefit, it's more than the housebound. With a single veteran, it's $1,794 a month. With the married veteran, it's $2,127. And then with the surviving spouse, it's $1,153. Now, when you look at the cost of the average assisted living facility in the United States, and it's $3,628, you can see that if you have a qualified veteran who meets the service requirements and has the expense of a $3,628 a month to go, if a single veteran can get $1,794 a month from the VA to assist with that cost, it can certainly stretch that veteran's life savings to last longer, or at least give the veteran an opportunity to get the care that he or she needs. So I think the VA program, what I see in my practice, is veterans who don't have the care, who want to get it, will look to the VA after getting the actual care from a facility and will rely on the VA benefit to get the care. And then there's veterans who are already paying privately who then access the VA benefit to help pay for the care. So most veterans don't really understand or know about this opportunity. So again, looking at the numbers and seeing the math, you can see that with a married veteran and the veteran needs the care, and say the married veteran's in assisted living, at $2,127 a month, that puts a serious dent in that assisted living bill if it's $3,628 a month. So again, I think we got to look at the VA program for purposes of helping us with that financial cost. When we look at the next requirement, because remember we have our service requirement, proper service, proper discharge, then we got to be disabled, now we got to have a low monthly income. When we look at the low monthly income, what we're really doing is we're comparing their unreimbursed monthly medical expenses. So we're talking about like an assisted living bill that comes every month because the person's confined to the facility, every month that bill is going to come. That would be a monthly medical expense that would be part of their total medical expenses. So when a veteran has unreimbursed monthly medical expenses that exceed his or her total monthly income, they have what's referred to as a low monthly income. It's income for VA purposes. So you need to have a veteran who has out-of-pocket expenses that exceed his or her income in order to meet that test. So in other words, this isn't a pre-plan. We're not pre-planning with it. We're taking veterans who are currently experiencing those costs. We do the comparison, and just from the assisted living costs that the average veteran doesn't have $3,600 of monthly income. And so the fact that if the veteran has $1,500 from Social Security, $200 from a pension, the fact that the assisted living cost is more than their monthly income automatically qualifies them under the low monthly income. But there's other monthly medical expenses that get compiled together to come up with the total. And so once we determine the IBAP, that then dictates what we get from the VA in terms of a benefit. So when we look at recurring monthly unreimbursed medical expenses, again, we're looking for those bills that are going to come every month. They're going to be almost the same, like home health care bills, agency bills, assisted living bills, Medicare copays and deductibles, transportation bills, if they have durable goods, oxygen tanks, things of that nature. We add up all the bills that are on an unreimbursed basis, and we total it to come up with their unreimbursed monthly medical expenses. So if the expenses are reimbursed, if the person has a long-term care insurance policy and they're paying them but they're being reimbursed, that doesn't meet the criteria. These have to be unreimbursed medical expenses that occur every month. When we look at the non-recurring medical expenses, what we're really talking about is prescription glasses, hearing aids, dentures, doctor's bills, things of that nature that are temporary. So when a person's first applying for the VA benefit, we've got to know that these bills are going to come each month. So we would never include any of these expenses in the formula. But when we get to the second year, so we've gotten someone eligible for the VA benefit, and we move into the second year, these expenses will then come into the formula, but they never come in for purposes of the first application for VA benefits. And the reason for that is the VA wants to know that if they're going to provide financial assistance, that the person needs assistance on a regular basis each and every month. And so again, we're only going to, in the first application for VA benefits, we're only going to add together those expenses that are coming every month, and they're identical. And they're, typically we want something that lasts a year or longer. Again, if someone has a short-term medical issue and it's going to be relieved in a couple of months, we're not going to make that part of their medical expenses. So when we look at the income for VA purposes, and in this example, what I did here is I said that if you take the first circle, and that's the monthly income. So if a married veteran, the combined monthly income between the husband and wife is $3,600, and their combined monthly unreimbursed medical expenses are $3,000, the difference between those two, because the monthly income is more than the monthly expenses, because they have a positive income of $600, then the maximum pension benefit that was available to that veteran who has one dependent, which is $21.27 a month, is reduced by the $600. So they would still be entitled, that veteran would still be entitled to an A&A benefit, but instead of getting $21.27 per month, it would only be $15.27. Now on the second circle on the first row, you see that there's what's called a 5% deductible. What the VA does is the VA says that if someone's going to have medical expenses, the first 5% based on the maximum available A&A pension benefit is reduced. So technically, in a nutshell, if you have expenses and you're a married veteran, they would have to have $106.32 more than the $3,000. So what the VA says is that the first $106.32 in a married case is disregarded. So when you see the little asterisk there on the second circle on the first row, that number was really $3,106.32. So we already put the deduction in it. Now again, What I like to do when working with clients is I want to know cash flow. So when I'm looking at these numbers, a lot of times, and you'll see my slides, I'm trying to say, okay, I know there's a deductible, and I know it's important in determining the benefit. But again, when we're looking at cash flow, we're trying to do a perfect financial plan for clients because they always want to know, what do I really get to spend? What's available for me? When we look at the next financial requirement, because we looked at the IVAP thing, and that's really talking about monthly income. The next financial requirement is low net worth. In other words, you can have your monthly income. If you satisfy the income test, then in order to be eligible, you also have to satisfy an asset test, which is defined as low net worth. Now, when you look at the official VA website, it says there's no limit on the amount that a veteran can have, but it can't be excessive. So in trying to do planning, most of us who engage in this planning really want to know there has to be a hard set rule or a way to calculate it. So again, if you look at websites that are out there, generally they say a single veteran or a single claimant can keep $50,000 of cash assets, while a married claimant can keep $80,000. Now, I don't use those numbers because when we engage in VA planning, and that's what we're going to do today, we generally are going to require that a single claimant keep about $15,000 in cash assets, and a married claimant can keep about $25,000. But the older your client, the less you should keep. But again, I think in doing the planning that we're talking about today, in a single case, we're going to keep $15,000, and in a married case, we're going to allot about $25,000 in cash assets. So what does the VA consider countable? Well, everything other than the things on the next slide. What the VA says is what's excluded is we never count the house, we don't count immediate annuities, we don't count motor vehicles, personal property, prepaid burials. Because again, it's presumed that everybody needs to have a place to live, motor vehicle, personal property, things in the house, and a prepaid burial. But they are going to count the other items. And what we're really talking about in the other items is second automobiles, checking and savings account, cash value life insurance. And this is a big one on the second row, retirement accounts. With Medicaid planning, for those of you who also are aware of Medicaid planning, a lot of Medicaid programs exclude retirement accounts, either for the community spouse or the spouse in the nursing home. But with the VA always counts retirement accounts as a countable resource. And then the VA also counts certificates of deposit and tax-deferred annuities. So when do we consider VA planning? Well, again, we don't want to consider it as a pre-plan. So we're always going to be looking for a qualified veteran or the surviving spouse of a qualified veteran. We want them to be receiving home health care or be a resident of an assisted living facility because we want to have them have the out-of-pocket expenses. We don't want them coming to us worried about what it might cost. We want to see actual expenses. And then we want to have someone come to us with a condition that's not expected to improve because we don't want it to be a temporary situation where they're going to go in rehab and then come out, and then they have to have an excessive net worth. A lot of times what you're going to find today is there's veterans out there that don't really have a net worth. All they have is monthly income. And for those veterans, you know, they could go down and qualify right away, but for many of them, the problem they have is they don't have enough monthly income, even with the VA benefit, to pay for the long-term care services, especially if we talk about assisted living. So again, we want that person to come to us with all of these conditions. They're the type of person who needs our planning services. So here's a case study. I've got Clarence, age 79. He's a Korean War veteran. Mary, age 75. She was providing all of his care. She realizes that she couldn't do it any longer, so Clarence enters an assisted living facility. The monthly cost of the facility that he's in is $3,800 a month. When we look at their assets, we know that Mary lives in the family home. It's worth about $175,000. She has a newer car worth about $26,000. Household goods worth about $35,000. Now we know that those things are excluded, so we're not really going to count those. But we do know that between their savings account, checking, and some other investments, they have about $220,000. We know that Clarence gets $1,600 a month from Social Security and $400 from a pension, so he has $2,000 a month, and Mary has $800 from Social Security. Their combined total monthly income is $2,800. So what are they worried about? Well, Mary's worried that, if you spend $3,800 a month and you have $227,000 in the savings account, the money's going to be gone in 57 months. That's not a long time, especially when you're Mary's age 75 and in good health. At the same time, Mary's worried that, if all of their life savings is consumed, what is she going to have to rely on for purposes of her financial future? So again, I think it's a big concern. $220,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not when you consider that not only do they have to pay for Clarence's assisted living, but Mary needs something to live on each month, because again, they only have $2,800 coming in, and you add those two numbers together, it's a significant amount. So rather than face an uncertain future, Mary meets with an elder law attorney who's certified in VA benefits, because elder law attorneys can work in the elder law area of law, but you want someone who has a VA certification, because that attorney can file the VA application and help with the VA benefits. And then at the same time, Mary, who works with her financial planner, met to develop a VA plan for Clarence. So what's the first thing we do? Well, we do a financial analysis. We know that with the assisted living facility being $3,950, and it's $3,800, but it's $3,950 here, and the Medicare Part B is $134. We know that both we have a plan for Mary and Clarence, it's $268, and then we have a supplemental insurance plan that they both have, which is $340. Their total unreimbursed monthly medical expenses equal $4,558. Now, the concern that Mary has is Mary has all of the other monthly out-of-pocket expenses related to running the home. She has her real estate taxes, homeowners insurance, car insurance, utilities, cable, internet, car expenses, home repairs. All of those items add up to about $1,800. At least that's what she worked out with her financial planner. So when we look at their income for VA purposes, we know that if you take $2,800, now we're in the last row there, if you take their $2,800 of monthly income from Social Security pension, they've got $2,800, and if you subtract their unreimbursed monthly medical expenses, which is the $4,558, they have a negative IVAP of $1,758. Now the fact that it's negative tells me that because Clarence is a married veteran eligible for the VA benefit for assisted living, he would be going after the $2,127 monthly benefit to help him. So as long as your IVAP is 0 or less, and in this case it's $1,758, we know that they're going to go after and get the $2,127 aid and attendance benefit. So what does the plan look like? Well, we know that they have $220,000 in total assets. They pay $5,500 for legal fees to finish their estate plan. They bought 2 prepaid funeral plans for $16,000. She paid some outstanding bills valued at $15,000. She kept $25,000 in savings, which left $158,500 to go into the VA compliant immediate annuity. So this is the way we're spending down. We know that we're going to leave Mary with $25,000 in the savings account, and everything else has to be eliminated to get them to a low net worth. So let's talk about the VA compliant immediate annuity. When we look at annuities that are used for VA planning, there's really 2 types. We use what's called an immediate annuity. We're not going to use what's referred to as a tax-deferred annuity, because with a tax-deferred annuity, we all understand that tax-deferred annuities have cash value. We're using an immediate annuity, which converts a pile of cash into a monthly income stream. And once an immediate annuity is annuitized, it's only considered income. It has nothing to do with an asset base for purposes of the net worth test. And then we know that immediate annuity structures come in both level pay and balloon style, or we could use a combination depending on the facts of our case. So when we talk about the immediate annuity, which is called the level payout, that's the most common. What we do is we want to have the same monthly payment each month for the term of the annuity. And generally, that's the product that's most comparable to the Medicaid one. And when we set up this type of annuity, we're never going to stretch it longer than the person's Medicaid life expectancy. And the reason for that is if Mary buys this annuity in this case, and at age 75, she later has to go into a nursing home and need Medicaid, we don't want the product to be disqualified because it was too long. So we're always going to fulfill what's referred to as the actuarially sound test for Medicaid. Now the other type of annuity is the balloon style immediate annuity. And what the balloon style does is it provides a small monthly payment in each and every month, except for the last payment, which is the balloon payment. So you can see here in the first row that if you invest $10,000 in a balloon style annuity, and in this case we used a 69-month payout, in months 1 through 68 it pays $17.72. In the 69th month it's going to pay $9,327.72, and the total payout over the course of 69 months is $10,532.68. If you invest $100,000, again, the payment amount is now $92.38 in the first 68 months. In the 69 months, it's $99,402.38. The total payout is $105,684. Now, the times that we use a balloon-style annuity with our VA plans is when someone has a high net worth, and we've got to reduce down. But again, we don't want to create too much monthly income where we cause the IVAP to go positive, because then all we're going to do is we're going to create too much monthly income, which then jeopardizes the benefits we're trying to get from the VA. So in order to achieve the perfect result with someone with a higher net worth, we're going to blend the annuities. We're going to have a level pay and a balloon so that we can get the monthly payment to give us exactly what we need so that we don't violate the IVAP test. So what do we decide to use? Well, we look at the age. In this case, we have Mary, who's 75. We know that her life expectancy is 12.83 years, which is 153 months. So we're never going to go more than 153 months. And then depending on the extent of the net worth and what we have to spend down really dictates which product we're going to use, or if we're going to use a combination of immediate annuities between a level pay and a balloon style. So let's get back to Mary. We know that Mary had to invest $158,500 in an annuity, and we wanted her monthly payment to be $625.24. And so that gave us a 100-month payout. So when you look at the total, it's $162,524. That's not important. What's important is the last row here. We know that by giving her that monthly annuity payment, that the total monthly income that they have, remember they each have a Social Security check. He had $2,000 in monthly income, she had $800, plus you add the monthly payment from the annuity, their combined monthly income is $4,425.24. Now their unreimbursed monthly medical expenses are $4,558, so their IVAP is negative. Why do we want a negative? Because we want the maximum available VA benefit, which in this case, a married veteran with one dependent gets $2,127. So what it does in a nutshell is, after we use all of it, we end up with a monthly surplus of $1,994.24, because now we have enough money to pay our monthly medical expenses between the Social Security pension and the annuity payment. So then we get $2,127 from the VA, which then gives us a surplus of $1,994.24. Well, that's the money that Mary gets to use to pay all of her household expenses, which she estimated to be $1,800. So the nice thing about this plan is we now have enough money from all sources, Social Security, pension, plus the annuity, plus the VA. We have a total cash flow of $6,552.24 a month. And we have total monthly expenses of $6,358, which leaves us a net cash flow of $194.24. So now we've got all of the financial problems taken care of. Betty has enough, or Mary has enough for all of her monthly expenses. Clarence has enough to cover all of his out-of-pocket costs, including their, the medical expenses related to Mary. So we end up with a positive cash flow, which means that Mary won't have to go into the $25,000 savings account. So what happens now? We'll assume that after 36 months in assisted living, Clarence dies and he's gone. We know that in the 36 months he was in the facility and on VA benefits, he collected $76,572 of VA benefits, or $2,127 per month. We know that Clarence received the care that he needed, so again, we took their life savings, we stretched it out, we picked up another $76,000 in benefits, so it allowed Mary to have the security that she needed, not only to pay all of her expenses, but it left her with a good monthly income after his passing, because what's going to happen? Once he's gone, his $1,800 Social Security check, she's going to take that and give up hers, and then she's, in this case, the $400 pension that Clarence was receiving, I expected that it would continue to her. So with $800 plus $1,800 plus $400, plus she still has 64 months of payments from the annuity of $1,625.24. She has total monthly income of $3,825. So again, comparing it to their initial income from Social Security and pension, which was $2,800, she has a significant monthly income, and she'll keep that income until she's 83.3 years of age. So was it a good result? Well, I think it was. Mary kept the house, her car, all of the things. She met all her expenses. She had $25,000 in savings. And so all in all, I think with the monthly income after Clarence passed away, she should be able to put some of it into savings if her monthly expenses are still at $1,800. So that $25,000 savings account she has would probably start to grow after she starts, collecting payments in month 37 and beyond. So with all of the payments remaining, that $25,000 savings account could grow to a substantial sum before the annuity ends. Well, what happens if the case involved, we had $220,000, but let's assume in those case facts that part of the $220,000 was a $35,000 IRA account in Mary's name. What happens to the IRA? Do things change if the IRA was owned by Clarence rather than Mary? And the answer is really no. If the $190,000 that they had in savings, if $35,000 was in an IRA in Mary's name, does it really change the result? No. Instead of a $25,000 in the savings account, which was liquid, I would have suggested that Mary keep the $25,000 from her IRA account and then annuitize the $10,000 surplus over 100 months. If we run the annuities the same way we ran the first one, the financial or the economic result is going to be one and the same, because whether you have an IRA immediate annuity or a regular annuity, the payouts are the same. The only distinction I want to make for purposes of that is you can't mix qualified funds and non-qualified. So if we do have this case, what we would have ended up having is we'd had two immediate annuities. One would have been the $10,000 IRA account in Mary's name, and the other would have been a non-qualified immediate annuity also in Mary's name. Now, if the account had been owned by Clarence rather than Mary, again, it wouldn't have changed. We'd have left the $25,000 in the account in Clarence's name, and then we'd annuitize the $10,000. So it doesn't matter whose name it was in, the economic benefits are going to be the same. Now, when we convert an IRA account into an immediate annuity that's also an IRA qualified product, it's not a taxable event to do that. What we're going to do is a trustee-to-trustee transfer, and so there's no taxation on the conversion. But in this case, if the IRA was owned by Mary and she gets the monthly payments, then she would, be taxed on the payments in the year of receipt. So at this point, it looks like we're out of time for our program, and we're ready for some questions.
Thank you, Dale. Great job. I do have a couple questions I'd like to ask you. Does Mary's immediate annuity have to be Medicaid compliant?
No, in this case, because they're only pursuing the VA benefits, it doesn't have to be Medicaid compliant. It just has to meet the requirements for the VA administration. And really, the only thing you need for an annuity to be VA compliant is that it be an immediate annuity, and that's it. So the extra requirements related to Medicaid do not apply.
Okay, can you explain the difference between a VA compliant annuity and a Medicaid compliant annuity?
Yeah, if the immediate annuity is VA compliant, then what it requires is that the monthly payment and the duration of payments be irrevocable. And with all immediate annuities, that's generally the case. Now, if we're going to talk about Medicaid compliant, not only do we have to have the payment amount and the duration of payments be irrevocable, but the parties to the annuity have to be irrevocable. So, you know, if Mary's the owner, annuitant, payee, you know, you couldn't change those. And then at the same time, with a Medicaid compliant immediate annuity, the state has to be the primary beneficiary. So Medicaid wants to know that nothing will change after it's put in place. And then with a Medicaid compliant annuity, you know, it has to be actuarially sound. And so with all of our VA compliant immediate annuities, we never violate that test. And then the equal payment test as well. And that's another test we don't violate. So the real distinction between the two really comes down to irrevocableness as to the parties. It can't be non-assignable or assignable. With the VA annuity, it could be assignable. With the Medicaid annuity, it has to be non-assignable. And then I think the beneficiary designation. In this case, with Mary, she would have probably named the children as the primary. And so that's really the distinction. So with a Medicaid compliant annuity, it's got more rules and requirements than a VA compliant immediate annuity. Another question.
Yep, there's a lot of chatter in the questions about where they can get the care. Like it asks about VA homes, assisted living. Can you just go over again where these cares can come from? If it's, you know, a specific place, or can it come from anything?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about housebound, generally that program is designed for someone who's confined to their home. Now, the only time they ever leave their home is someone comes in, assists them to get to a doctor's appointment or some medical treatment. But generally, they don't need any more assistance, but they're stuck at home because they're disabled. When we talk about the aid and attendance benefit, that's a person whose care, they require care on a daily basis. In other words, they're missing 2 ADLs, whether it's eating, bathing, transferring, toileting, or they have a cognitive impairment. That's where someone's checking on them every day and keeping them safe. You know, without that daily care, they wouldn't be safe. You could be at home, you could be in an assisted living facility, you could be in a nursing home. It doesn't matter where you are. You just have to meet the criteria of needing aid and attendance on a daily basis. Now, there's different types of facilities out there. I mean, but again, I don't think we have enough time to cover all those, because I know there's veterans homes, and a lot of the veterans homes will take care of those service-connected veterans who have a disability. There's certain ratings that you get, and depending on your rating dictates whether or not you get into a particular facility. But I think for purposes of today's program, we're really talking about home health care or assisted living. Is there another question?
Yeah, can a VA annuity be converted to a Medicaid compliant annuity?
Yes, the product that we offer through the Krause Agency, if we set up a VA compliant immediate annuity, again, it's going to be the simple base product. It's going to be irrevocable as to the payment amount and the duration of payments. But because the insurance company we use allows us to convert it to a Medicaid compliant annuity, and the way we typically do that is the first thing we have to do is change the primary beneficiary to the state Medicaid program, and then we elect the irrevocable language, meaning that the parties to the contract can no longer be changed. So again, if Mary was involved, Mary would be the owner, annuitant, payee, and then the state Medicaid program would be the primary beneficiary, and then we make sure that the contract is non-assignable. So with the products we offer, we know that people can go from home health care, assisted living onto a nursing home, and so in those cases they need to transfer from, you know, the VA benefit to Medicaid. we want to know that our product is versatile and allows them to make that transfer. So when we engage in the planning, we make sure that the product and the insurance company we use offers the conversion features. Now, not every insurance company has that opportunity, so you got to be careful. Just about any immediate annuity will work for VA planning, but when it comes time to convert it to a Medicaid compliant immediate annuity, you know, that's where most insurance companies don't offer the product. And so then you'd have a problem immediate annuity because Medicaid's not going to approve it. Another question.
If a single veteran qualifies for aid and attendance and transfers from an assisted living facility to a nursing home and qualifies for Medicaid, does he still receive the full aid and attendance benefit?
No, in the case of a single veteran, once they transfer from, you know, once they transfer from assisted living and they meet the eligibility requirements for Medicaid and they're economically on Medicaid benefits, then what the VA program does with the aid and attendance benefit is it drops to $90 a month. Again, the government doesn't want us accessing two programs at the same time. You know, if we qualify for the aid and attendance, we're not going to get Medicaid, and if we qualify for Medicaid, we're still going to get the aid and attendance, but only to the extent of $90 a month. Now, if you have a case where it's a married couple, depending on their medical expenses, could allow them to still get Medicaid for the veteran and then still obtain an aid and attendance benefit. It really depends on the numbers. But in the single case, as you pointed out, the answer would be no. The benefit would reduce to $90 per month.
Okay, I think we just have time for one more question. Does the VA have a look back for Medicaid, like Medicaid for gifts?
No, the VA program does not have a look back. The Medicaid program has what's called a 60-month look back, and what they're doing is when someone applies for Medicaid, they ask for gifts that occurred in the 60 months prior to the application. And what they're really going to do is penalize that applicant for making those gifts. And the VA right now currently doesn't have a look back or assess any penalty for prior gifts, but that's all in the process of changing. But at this moment in time, if you gave away assets today and applied tomorrow, those gifts are not going to jeopardize your ability to qualify for, you know, either housebound or aid and attendance.
All right, I think that's all we have time for today. Can you just let everybody know how to work with us?
Yes, if for those of you who listened to the program today and you want to work with the Krause Agency, you know, what you need to do is just give us a call, send us an email, and Connie Ashley and Deb, who's on the call here today with us or on the webinar, you know, the two of them can take care of your needs. So not only can they help you to understand what we can do for you, but they can get the products that you need to do this type of planning. And so we look forward to working with you on cases involving VA planning.
All right, everyone, I just want to say thank you for attending today's webinar. If we did not get to your questions, we will follow up with them this week. We will be posting a recording of this webinar on our website within 24 hours. Again, if you could take a moment to complete our survey, it will appear as you exit the GoToWebinar window. We hope you can join us at the end of the month for our next webinar, which is a beginner level, Intro to Medicaid Planning with Tom Krause on March 14th.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Dale.